Hello and welcome to Bitcoin Parenting. We are so excited that you're joining us here today, leading up to Father's Day in celebration. We are so excited to host this roundtable. So excited that you're all joining us and wanted to make sure that we spent some time as we lead into the holiday weekend talking about Bitcoin, finances, and family, and how these all come together, and sharing with all of you some of our best tips, ideas, and strategies that we use for our own families. And we'll even open up so that you can share your questions, or maybe even you share your own tips in the chat as we go along. I want to introduce to you my co-host, Dante Cook, who you may know from the Bitcoin Daily show that he hosts every day, I think, during the week. Yes, he's an amazing machine. He's become an icon. When I go out to events for Swan, everybody always asks me about Dante. So thanks for joining me, Dante.
What's up, Kristen? I'm glad to be here, to be hanging out. And to be honest, like all of the other parents on the chat, it's like super cool when we get to hang out with other parents with no kids in the way. So this is like my dream, getting to hang out with other parents and kick it. I'm a dad. I'm a dad of four. My kids are 8, 6, 4, and 1. And so I'm just full of corny dad jokes. Like I make jokes on the Daily Show, and I like to have a good time. But like literally, it's how I like want to receive affirmation, is like my kids laughing at my jokes. So
yes. And do you have a favorite from today that you shared?
Man, I got a couple. Like what's a Bitcoiner's favorite plant? A Merkle tree.
Oh my goodness.
What won't a Bitcoiner eat Mandrick's baklava with? A hard fork. Who did Satoshi's baby mama bring onto the Maury show? Craig Wright. And you are not the father. Why did the Bitcoin miner cross the street? To get to the next block? I just like to have fun with some of these.
Dante will be here.
But you know what? I'm glad to be here. I'm excited to host with you, Kristen.
Well, I'm so excited as well. I have a 16-year-old kiddo born just around the time that Bitcoin was born, not too far off. So always happy to share tips and ideas. I'm in teen land, and I know a lot of our guests that are joining us today even have some newborns. So we'll get to them in 1 second. But I first want to give a shout out to our sponsor, Free Market Kids. You'll be meeting Scott and Tolly here shortly, but Free Market Kids makes it easy and fun to introduce money concepts to kids through tabletop games, courses, and resources, all to help you give the next generation freedom, success, and happiness. So you can learn more about them at Free Market Kids, and you're going to get to meet them momentarily. So we could maybe even bring them up to the stage first. And that's Scott and Tolly from Free Market Kids. We're so excited that they're joining us.
Hey guys, thanks for having us. This is awesome. And I'm very inspired by these dad jokes. Dante, I think you should write. We have a lot of Bitcoin books, but I don't think we have a Bitcoin dad joke book yet. I feel inspired hearing those jokes. We were laughing on the side while you guys are starting that. So,
along with thank you, Scott and Tolly, for joining us. And we have Carla and Walker, who many of you know. We have Morgan and Pierre Rochard, Lisa Hough. We have Camilla Campton. Alex Devani as well. Brady may or may not be joining us. Brady Swenson, we'll see. But holy cow, what an all-star lineup. I would love for each of you to just say hi to everybody watching us live and maybe share who you are and what kind of parenting situation you're in. Let's kick it off with Camilla. You want to introduce yourself?
Yeah, so my name's Camilla Campton. I'm here a team member at Swan and Pacific Bitcoin. I'm a new mom. My daughter, she is 1.5 years old, and it has been a very awesome ride and journey. And I'm here to actually get some wisdom from the parents that have been parents longer than I have. But yeah, thank you guys for having me here. It's super exciting.
Thank you. Let's head over to Carla and Walker.
Mm-hmm. Hey guys, I'm Carla Bitcoin. I make funny and weird videos, music videos, and I'm a new mom of a 6-month-old.
I'm not a new mom of a 6-month-old, but I am a new dad. I'm Walker. Walker America, I guess is the stage name. I help her make those videos, but now I've started a Bitcoin podcast as well because it's what every man in the Bitcoin space eventually does. So yeah, happy to be here.
Amazing. And congratulations to both of you.
Congrats.
Scott and Tolly, do you want to say hi to everyone?
Absolutely. Scott, we co-founded Free Market Kids, and you guys already gave that nice introduction about what we focus on. In addition to games, we also have a podcast called Bitcoin Homeschoolers. So all this parenting stuff is right up our alley. Go ahead, Tom.
We have 4 kids that we homeschool from beginning to high school graduation. We have one that's getting married actually this coming weekend. Very exciting. All of them actually graduated high school around the same time. Quite unexpectedly, we did the one schoolroom method. And so we have some feedback about the pros and cons of that. And we've also traveled a lot while we were homeschooling. So we have a lot of information about different styles of homeschooling, pros and cons, etc. But to follow up with Scott, Free Market Kids is what we started to share money literacy with kids, but it was him using Huddle Up to force me to come into Bitcoin space, which then led to me starting the Orange Hatter Women Initiative. And so my mission now is to reach moms in the Bitcoin space.
Amazing. Thank you. Pierre and Morgan, thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having us. We're Morgan and Pierre Rochard. We've got 3 young kids. We've been in Bitcoin a long time. How long have we been in Bitcoin?
A decade or so.
Yeah, a decade. Yeah, but we don't. We haven't been in Bitcoin parenting, I guess, as long as we've been in Bitcoin.
Almost as long.
Almost as long, yeah. And
we
so
have the Bitcoin for Advisors podcast that we co-host together. And then I have 2 other podcasts just because, that's what Bitcoiners do.
Yeah, definitely. I have a financial planning practice where I help young families with their finances, specifically around Bitcoin. And so while I haven't parented older ages, I've certainly given advice and helped parents with older kids on how to help kids be responsible with their finances.
Nice. And you've shared a lot, both of you and many of you, on our Pacific Bitcoin stage, as well as some of our Swan private live sessions teaching people on those topics. So thank you to you both. Lisa Hough, thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me. I guess I need to start a podcast, although I really don't want to. You all do such so thank you for all your podcasts. I tune into all of them. And really, they're a huge part of my Bitcoin journey, huge part of how I got here. I'm Ella's mom. I sort of made that joke this year at BitBlock Boom because I go to a lot of conferences like all these folks here, and it's incredible when somebody comes up to you and says, hello, I've heard you on this podcast or whatever. And now people come up to me at conferences and say, oh my gosh, you're Ella's mom, because Ella is now in the Bitcoin space. So as a parent, it is just like winning the Academy Awards of parenting. It's so much fun. So I am really looking forward to this. I'm just going to relive how it feels to have small kids because they are so cute and they grow up way too fast.
Amazing. Thank you. And before we dive into the discussion, last but not least, Miss Alex Devani.
Hi, everyone. I'm Alex, and I'm on the Swan marketing team. I am the mother of a 2-year-old boy. And to the surprise of many of my colleagues, I'm also an expecting mother of another baby boy coming in December.
Woo!
So yeah, I'm kind of on my biggest mission right now as a new mom and an expecting mother is to get as many expecting parents to put Bitcoin addresses on their baby shower registries. The baby shower industry is a $70 billion industry. And if we could just move a little bit of those funds into Bitcoin, it would just be tremendous for our future generations. And then a fun fact is that one of my sons, probably I would say the first 15 to 20 word was Bitcoin, because I wear so much Bitcoin merch And, he's always pointing at it, and I say, Bitcoin, Bitcoin. So it was probably like his 15th word that he's ever said. So that's pretty cool.
Amazing. Well, thank you, everybody. Appreciate you giving everybody a chance to get to know you a little better as a Bitcoiner and a parent, and that we have just so many podcasts being born as well at the same time. And congrats, Alex. It's been hard to hold that secret, so I'm glad the secret is out. We're so happy for you. Let's go to our first question because we want to make sure we have lots of time for discussion. I want to go to Carla and Walker first, maybe for this first question, which is, how was money handled in your own family, and did that impact kind of how you became a Bitcoiner, or does it impact how you parent now?
You want to take it first?
Sure. So in my own family, my father defected from communist Romania. So the whole no trusted third parties, like, I grew up around don't trust the government, don't trust hardly anything. He, used to have to hide his foreign currency in a bar. And yeah, he came over to America with like basically nothing. So growing up, big saving family, was always told, to try to avoid having debt if possible. So I was basically primed to be open to Bitcoin, and I'm very thankful for that.
Yeah. Growing up, so I was actually, I was homeschooled for most of my childhood until I made the decision that I wanted to try out high school. That was, I suppose, both a good and a bad thing. But so happy to hear there's other homeschoolers on this call. We did not talk about money as much, I know, as Carla's family did, because having hung out with her dad now quite a lot, he always has some lesson on the Federal Reserve or monetary theory. And that was a big, actually, part of me kind of going down that monetary theory rabbit hole. But growing up, I wasn't really exposed to these things. So for me, as I started going down the Bitcoin rabbit hole and started really figuring out that that was the way that I could really save for the future, that was hugely transformational, because I just didn't really have a great tool set for that before. And I suppose most people didn't until Bitcoin came along. So we're all in the same boat in that regard.
And as for how it's affecting my kind of parenting style, it's something that surprised me, because, I've been a stacker, a saver for so long now. But since becoming a mom and becoming more present, I'm actually more like, stacking is great and all, but you got to live your life. You got to have fun. You got to, spend too. Like, I like to create experiences for my son. Like we just went to Washington, D.C. Like, stacking and saving is great, but it's not like, you have to remember to still live your life, because, tomorrow is not guaranteed.
It's important to remember that nobody wants money. You want what money can buy you. And so, don't be afraid to spend it. And if you can spend that Bitcoin too, and then just replace it, even better.
Yes, so true. Dante, do you want to kick off the next question for us?
Yeah, I want to go over to Camilla, because I've really enjoyed watching you integrate your family into a lot of our conferences, a lot of meetups and different things that I've gotten to see you, your husband, your daughter at. Talk about how Bitcoin has changed, your views on parenting in general, and then, how you've tried to integrate your family and traveling and going to conferences and all of these things into the Bitcoin ecosystem.
Absolutely. So part of my story when it comes to Bitcoin, and the reason why Bitcoin clicked in my head, is because I knew that when I started my marriage with my husband, I wanted to start a family and I wanted to become a mother. And the thing that really worried me at the time, I didn't know about Bitcoin, is how are we going to save up? How are we going to have a nest egg for a future family? Because, being in fiat world, you don't really see that many options, or it's a very gray world. Very pessimistic. So when I found out about Bitcoin, or finally paid attention, it clicked. And I said, I have to start this journey so that I can save for my husband and myself, right? To take care of ourselves, but also for our future kids. So ever since I started my Bitcoin journey, I have always tried to incorporate, obviously my husband's the one that orange pilled me, so he's been on this journey with me. I've tried to orange pill my parents, my sisters, and now having a baby, it's the opportunity to share this with her, although she is very young, but she's been to, I think, 3 or 4 Bitcoin conferences already. Just for her to be involved in that positive energy is really important to me. So it can be a little scary because traveling with a little baby can be nerve-wracking. But once you get over that and you see, I think about it as my baby is going to meet all her uncles and aunts that are in this journey with me. And so just being able to involve her with such amazing people from an early age is really important to me. And that's what I see the Bitcoin community as being. So whenever I bring her along, I just feel like I'm introducing her to new family members. And it's always a blast just to have the pictures of that I can show her later on saying, you were at this conference in 2023 and this one in 2024. And look, this is, Kristen or Dante or, any of the other really awesome Bitcoiners that I get to share with. So it's been such a fun journey.
Well, it's so true. They say where there's no vision or there's no hope, like the people perish. And it's so interesting for me relative to other industries or my friends or peers or other people that I interact with. I mean, even at Swan, right, we have, I don't know, 10 or 12 expecting, new swans and babies. And it's like Bitcoin, I think, unlocks people's time preference and their thought processes around starting families and having kids. And I think, per capita, like when you do the Bitcoin, the birth rate index in the Bitcoin industry, right? With mining, we've got the sustainability index or these sorts of things, right? Like we are at such a different trajectory, I think, than other industries or groups of people because of, I think, the longer time preference. And I think the hope that I think Bitcoin instills in people to start families earlier and make plans to do these things. So it's no surprise to us here, but it's so fun to see people investing in having kids, because there's so many of my friends that are my age or our age and are just not even considering children at all. So
yeah, that's such a great point. And if you're in the chat and you want to share kind of some of your views on the questions that we're sharing or some of your tips or ideas, I'm sure Chris can pop them up on the screen from time to time as well. And I know bringing my own 16-year-old to Pacific Bitcoin as the director of the festival, we travel there. We're usually there all week. I bring him along, and it's just been a great influence to get to meet all of you and all the amazing Bitcoiners in the world and just be picking up those golden nuggets along the way. And a huge part of that as a parent, of course, is saving. And the first person that comes to mind when I think about Bitcoin and saving is Pierre Rochard, of course. So I'm wondering, Pierre, as the man who's constantly encouraging us to sell our chairs, do you have any great tips on kind of how you and Morgan approach saving and kind of minding your family budget so that you can stack the way you want to and just enjoy the lifestyle you want to? How do you approach that as a family?
Yeah, so we do talk with the kids about whether they want to spend their money on a new toy or save it for later and get something different. So I think it's really important. At the same time, though, I'm mindful, or we're mindful of we don't want them to rebel against us, whether now or later. So it's always a balance between saving and spending. And likewise for Bitcoin education, right? So we don't try to push Bitcoin onto them. Rather, we wait for opportunities where they're asking about it or they want to read a book about it. I had my son ask me what the halving was because he overheard me talking about it. So I think that I have this feeling that if we try to push it, then they'll become, Ethereum maximalists. So we got to try to keep a balance with the kids.
Yeah, I mean, the thing I would add too is that, I mean, we have a strong faith in God. And so there are three things that are really very important when you're raising a family, whether it be in regards to saving and how you spend your money or really any value that you have. And the first thing is that you plant the values in your kids' minds. And so that's like planting is like over and over again, expressing what it is, the value that you want your kid to have. So in this case, it would be, that you have a shared value that saving is important and that there are reasons around why you would want to do that and how that would minimize uncertainty and using language, obviously, that's appropriate given the age of your child. The second thing is building, right? So there's planting where you're just constantly feeding them the values, putting pegs in their brain and hoping that they remember it. Whereas building is like you stop the behavior in the moment, right? And so if they're doing something that's really bad and something that you really don't want them to do, right? Trying to figure out a way to stop them so that you can build in that that moment and have it be a teachable moment. And then the last thing is that we rely on prayer, right? Because it's not really up to us at the end of the day. It's up to the big guy upstairs.
Yeah, and a line I like to use a lot in terms of planting is whenever they ask for something in the store, a good line is to say it's too expensive because of inflation. And so that opens up an opportunity to explain, the government printing money. And the other part of it, too, is when they want to pick out a treat that might have a lot of seed oils in it, we talk about inflation ingredients. Where they've replaced the good ingredients with bad ones to try to avoid the government money printing inflation. So there's lots of teachable moments day to day. It's just making an effort to connect the dots for them.
Yeah, for sure. And they know, right? They'll ask things like, does this have inflation ingredients in it? Or like, is this cost more than it used to? Or what is the government doing with our money? Right? They know things like that. They're attuned to it because they've heard it so many times. So the planting does work. It takes a much longer time, right? Obviously, than building. Building, you change maybe something that's going on in the moment, but you don't necessarily have a lasting effect on it. But the thing I will add on that is, right, so for instance, a grape plant, right? When you plant a grape plant, you can't just put the seeds in the ground. You also have to have the trellis. And so it's not enough just to plant. Sometimes you also have to have guardrails there to make sure that the outcomes go in the direction you want it to go.
Great point.
Yeah, I would love to. One thing that's really important to us at Swan and just in general in the Bitcoin space is education, right? You talk about teachable moments and those sorts of things of building, learning moments and opportunities into everyday interactions. I serve on the board in Indianapolis of a public charter school called Purdue Polytechnic High School. And so I'm hyper aware of education. And I think the total devastation that fiat has brought to our educational systems. And, I live in an urban environment. We live downtown in Indianapolis. And so you see the disparity between, the bubble counties, the suburbs, and then downtown schools. And it's pretty pervasive and consistent across urban school districts and places across the country. And so I really want to hear, this is fascinating. You said you had 4 kids that graduated at the same time, the Lindenbergs, Scott, and so I really want to understand what was homeschooling children like, because even more Bitcoin, U.S. government debt and interest payments, the number of people considering homeschooling right now is exploding. It looks like an NVIDIA stock chart. So I'd love to hear from you all who did it for a long time, what that's actually like and some of the considerations you might have in that.
Well, there's a lot there. So when we have our Bitcoin homeschooling podcast, we're trying to reach younger parents in the Bitcoin space. And we often say self-custody your education. And most Bitcoiners relate to that. But I think Tali said this recently. It's really about self-custodying your parenting and being present, because you don't have to. Not everybody is going to be able to homeschool, especially if you need 2 incomes to take care of your family. However, there are a lot of things that you can do to invest your time and your time, your love, your energy, and what you do. If you're watching your phone versus you're playing a game with your kid, the little things really, really matter. And in terms of planting seeds, I'll let Tali, she's much closer to this, but from my perspective, what you see in the long term is now we have relationships with our adult children and they're college age, and they have relationships with us where they trust us. They'll tell us about things, and their peers don't understand why they would even talk to their mom or dad about anything, let alone relationships. So to me, it is all about these little moments all the way through, whether it's games, it's over dinner table, it's on the weekends. It's all about these little experiences all the way through, and you're learning every time. So I'm kind of famous in the family. I'll give a whole lecture on responsibility to the kids if the garbage cans aren't out, right? There's teachable moments in all kinds of things. But Tali, I think maybe your perspective is probably a little softer than mine.
I'll talk more about the one room approach that I had. And I'll just start by saying that I never intended to homeschool. It was something that kind of fell into because I was very stuck in the mindset of the teachers know best. And because I don't have a teaching background, how can I possibly think about homeschooling? And it wasn't even literally on my radar. I didn't think it was a thing that people did anyway. But I was very stuck in the stepping system, like the sort of the conveyor belt system that I grew up with, which is, kids would start learning how to read when they're in kindergarten. And so when they're younger, I don't really need to do very much except to find a preschool for them. And then, they go to the third grade schools, they have the different subjects and they kind of move along like a train, that's like on the rails that were laid out by the government system. But I fell into homeschooling when our oldest was actually 2.5 years old. And I met someone who said that she had taught her 10-month-old baby how to read. And it was a statement that was so shocking. First of all, how do you even know that your baby understands what you're teaching them anyway, right? But she said, no, there's a way. And she gave me a book. And the book is titled How to Teach Your Baby to Read. So I take it home and I'm reading it. And in the introduction, it says that the window of learning for babies is 0 to 36 months old. And I was like, oh my gosh, I'm running out of time. Scott, wake up. Our firstborn is running out of time. She's 2.5, and I haven't started teaching her how to read. So, you can tell that I was like, what? You don't have to wait until you're in kindergarten before you teach your kid how to read, because I was really stuck in that mindset. Well, fast forward to, I did teach her how to read. I started doing flashcards with my second and my third. And my third at the time was 4 months old. And I was furiously flashing cards in front of her face every day, trying to get her to learn how to read because, she's still within the window. But anyway, so it really challenged my mindset about how old you have to be to start learning things. And so I just kind of threw it all out the window. And when I was teaching our youngest, when he was born, I was just like, you're going in, you're just learning everything. You're just going to be exposed and you take away from it what you can. And so that was the way that I did it, because I never wanted to keep the kids out of a learning situation because they're not old enough. I just think that whole mindset is very factory, like a conveyor belt system. So I threw that out the window. And when our oldest started high school material, our youngest, our second, third, and fourth, they all just started. And when she graduated, our oldest graduated, I asked my youngest, he was 12 or 13 at the time. And I said, well, you can redo everything you did 4 years ago, or you can do all this list of things that I made for him. And I said, I want you to take a test. I want you to take standardized tests to prove to the rest of the world that you can read and write. And if you meet this certain score amount, then I'm going to graduate you. And that was the choice that he made. He wanted to be done because he wanted to move forward. And that's how we were able to finish everybody at the same time.
Yeah. Dante, can I add something real quick? Homeschooling is very adaptable. I don't want anybody to be scared because Tali was a little intense on how kids. There are two things to think about. I would say one is there are certain things in the kind of Prussian conformity-based public schools that you want to avoid. And then there are things that you want to accelerate. So if you have a student that really excels in something, they're going to be held back if they're on that train that Tali was describing about. So it's very adaptable to whatever you need. You as the parent know better than anyone else what your kid really needs. And this happened to work for us, but this isn't, we don't tell anybody you should do what we do or did. You just look at what are the things you're trying to do with your child that you want them to experience. You want to teach them about money. You want to teach about load time preference and food. That's great. What are the things you want to avoid? Well, there's a lot of conformity. There's a lot of agendas. There's a lot of other things going on in schools that you may want to avoid. You have to choose what are the reasons that you want to do. And if it works for you, then you adopt it. But please don't be scared off if you're thinking about homeschooling, just because Tali and I are a little bit more intense about that. It's very doable. You don't need a degree to do it. People have been doing it for thousands and thousands of years. It's very natural, and we love to help anybody who is thinking about what to do from a parenting standpoint. So please, great. If you're thinking about it, don't be scared off. You should definitely do it.
Well, I appreciate your sharing that. And again, Scott and Tali are with Free Market Kids, so definitely connect with them. I can say as a mom, I remember an aha moment for me was when my son was in first grade. and he was in public school, and I was volunteering at the time, and I went, and all the kids were walking down the hallway, and they had them walking single file on a painted line down the hallway with their hands behind their backs. Like literally they looked like prisoners. And as a mom, I just had this sick, feeling in my stomach of like, oh my goodness, this is not what I want for my child. And, so we definitely school from home, and we really enjoy that. And I think what you're sharing is really important, which is there's lots of different ways, hybrid models and online models and homeschooling models, and really being able to customize that, I think, is really empowering and comforting if you're thinking about it. Yeah, definitely connect with them. But Bitcoiners are unconventional and we're rebellious. And guess what? All of that does come together at the Pacific Bitcoin Festival. So we want to make sure to share with you. I think everybody on this panel is planning on being at the festival with us, many on the stage. So definitely join us. If you don't have your tickets yet, we have a special code for you. It's Bitcoin FAM, Bitcoin FAM, because you're part of our Bitcoin fam, and that gets you 21% off and a free jade. If you know anything about Swan and how we want to promote your financial freedom, we really support you taking your Bitcoin off the platform and into cold storage. We want to help support you in doing that by giving you an amazing jade, a free jade with your ticket to Pacific Bitcoin. Jade is what Swan uses as part of our Vault program, which is our custodial or multi-sig program to help you keep your Bitcoin safe and secure for many generations ahead. So definitely wanted to make it easy for you to come out to California with your family, have an amazing time, hang around Bitcoiners, get your kids involved if you want to. You can go to Universal Studios, Disneyland, the beach, whatever gets you and your family excited. But we definitely want to welcome you and give you that special discount and the jade as well. Which is getting me thinking about Lisa. And as Lisa was saying earlier, she has become very well known as Ella's mom, has obviously successfully raised a Bitcoin, or Pacific Bitcoin will be partnering with Ella and her students groups to help bring more students to Pacific Bitcoin this year. So that's amazing. We're really, really excited about that. That'll be coming this fall. But maybe you could share a little bit about how you became a Bitcoiner, and or more importantly to this specific conversation, how did you raise such an amazing young lady Bitcoiner who's now going out and transforming more lives with that?
Yeah, thank you guys so much for working with Generation Bitcoin, the Bitcoin Students Network, so that more kids can attend the conferences. It really is the way. It is what hooked Ella. I think maybe our first conference, I think, was Oslo. We went to that a few years ago together. But then the next really full-on Bitcoin conference was Pacific Bitcoin. So it was a fantastic opportunity, and everyone was great to her, welcoming. There were many little kids, which is just a joy to see at a conference about, obviously, like financial freedom. You don't necessarily think that those two have anything to do with one another, but as Scott and Tali have gracefully navigated, they have very much to do with one another. So, I agreed with what was being said. You have to have real conversations with your kids. And Ella and I and her father just had very real conversations about finances her entire life. So we were huge proponents of giving her a choice with money. So, like Pierre was saying, they'll go to the store and maybe their kids want something with an inflation ingredient. We would have those conversations, and I think we gave Ella an allowance for a little while, but then I actually think we might have stopped. Her grandparents, I think, gave her money, and she had odd jobs where she made money when she was little. But, if she would say, I really want to buy a whatever, we'd say, okay, well, you can think about it. But, if you still want to do it in a week, great. You can, it's your money. But what she kind of discovered was that it really wasn't about the thing. It was always about whether or not she had the choice of having something that she wanted. And often it was just knowing that, well, I could have that and I feel good about that, but I'm not going to, because I may want to have something later. And when she was about 14, I sat down and said, now listen, you're you're getting ready to start thinking about colleges, and the goal of college is so that you can get out and take care of yourself. Your dad and I are not going to give you money past the day you graduate from college. And if you want to live a nice lifestyle, then how do you make that happen? And I'm a big Excel spreadsheet person. I said, let's build an Excel spreadsheet and let's extrapolate out what your life looks like. And that really raised an interesting question, because at that point, Ella said, well, I don't want to have a job just to make money. I want to do something that I really love. And I said, that sounds fantastic, but let's put this spreadsheet together. Tell me where you want to live. And so, and of course she said Boston. And I said, okay, well, let's Google how much it costs to live in Boston in a 1-bedroom apartment. What does your transportation look like? What does food look like? Right. And so we started to build out this list of things that she would need resources to cover. And she realized really quickly that, wow, I actually do need to go to college and probably get an engineering degree, because the other thing that we started Googling was, what are salaries of jobs after you graduate? So she decided she was going to go get an engineering degree and get out and, have the resources so that she could live this life that she had designed, which, by the way, was not fancy, right? It's just, she said to me at one time, she goes, gosh, it just costs a lot of money to wake up and breathe. It's like, yeah, it really does. She had her entire high school class curriculum built out the day she started as a freshman. She had gone through the curriculum books. She went to boarding school. She went through all the curriculums so that she could have every class that she needed in order to go to college and, go down this path of engineering, which she later then changed to, the idea was to do computer science and the ethics around AI, which that led her to Cornell and Stanford. At the time, this is like 4 years ago, were the only schools that had programs specifically on the ethics around AI. And that's where her interest was. So, she's now going to be a senior at Cornell, but her freshman year really had honed in on Bitcoin and started pursuing a path to a Bitcoin degree. And it took her almost 18 months to convince the university president, the board of the university foundation. She wrote and got everyone involved and said, look, I think this is what I want to study. I want to study Bitcoin. And here are all the reasons why this is important for our university to get involved with. So they went from basically saying, no, not interested, too narrow, you should study the gold standard, to allowing her to pursue this degree. So anyway, so she's, I think it's the ability, it's the early, like Pierre and Morgan were saying, it's planting these seeds very early on that your kids have power. Give your kids power, whether or not it's to choose something that they're buying or choose what they're consuming. And I just socially rejected every norm probably that there was for parenting, starting with, I always took her back to school 2 weeks late. We live in Houston. It's 1,000,000 degrees here. School starts usually like August the 10th. And often we would not come back until after Labor Day. We'd spend time with family in a very small town in the Northeast. And I would pick her up early a lot. And, I just would say to the administration, look, she's my child. I love spending time with her. I think her being, off in a sailboat by herself at age 6 is more valuable than her, Kristen, like you said, walking down the hall with her hands behind her back, walking on a straight line to recess. Like, I don't know. It just seems to me like she's better off being in a boat by herself. So anyway, thanks for letting me ramble, but especially so much for inviting the kids that are coming and for helping provide tickets to college students and really just bringing them into our circle, because they are the future, right? That I literally think we're all sitting here because of our children.
For sure. No, it's so well said. And I think the minute you become a parent, as everybody knows, it just changes your whole brain chemistry and how you view risk and how you view your future and your safety and your security, especially. And finances are a huge part of how we feel safe. I think, reminding me of what Walker was sharing at the beginning of this live stream, that it's not really about the money, it's about what the money gives you. And the money gives you that safety and security that your health and your needs are taken care of. And it's why so many of us are so passionate about Bitcoin and bringing it to future generations. And yeah, Pacific Bitcoin is certainly excited and honored to be partnering with Ella and the Students Network and Generation B. So look for more college kids coming to PB. And again, remember to use that code BitcoinFam if you don't have your ticket yet. Hop in, get the 21% off, get the free Jade, get all the parties and fun. We can't wait to see you there. Dante, do you want to field another question or another topic for our panel?
Yeah, I really wanted to go way back to the newer parents with the really young kids. Here, I mean, one thing that you just mentioned is thinking about there's a shift that happens, right? You may not be a procrastinator. Everyone's like, you wait to the last minute in order to do something or prepare for something. I know a lot of people that do a lot of preparation and planning for kids, and this is what I'm going to feel like and think like, and then you're holding this new life or this baby or this child like in your hands, and then like everything that you thought that you knew or you thought that you knew kind of changes in that moment. And so, really quickly, Carla and Walker, I mean, as the newest parents on here, I mean, maybe take me back just to that moment of just any thoughts or experiences or feelings that you all had, specifically as it related to, your careers, your job, or money after you had a child, given that you're just so fresh in that, from that experience.
Well, before I kind of was like, I think I want to be a stay-at-home mom. And then after I had the baby, I was like, yeah, I'm going to be a stay-at-home mom.
Yeah. I'm not a stay-at-home mom, but I'm very glad that she is. And again, like, I think at least for me, the mentality shift, like you said, Dante, it's like, everybody can tell you that, your life will never be the same. It'll be completely different. And you can't understand it till you're in it. And you're like, okay, thanks for the unsolicited advice. Like, very nice. And then it happens and you're like, oh man, they were all right. Like, yes, I could not have possibly understood the level to which everything changes until you're actually in it. And so for me, it was just like, it was new motivation. It was like, I thought I cared about the future before, but the future was more so like limited to my own lifespan, even as much as I might pontificate about future generations. It's like, until you're raising the future generation, you can't possibly truly care about them. Like you might, but like you might a little bit. I'm not saying everyone, without children, you can't care about the future, but like
it gives you more hope.
Yeah. Once you have kids, it's like, well, I want to make this world better and at least make the world better for my family. Like, and it means something because somebody's going to be living long after I'm gone.
Yeah, that's really good. I mean, yeah, you're intimately, you're always a buyer, right? And then when you have kids, you're like, oh, I got to be a builder. Like I'm building, I by default, you turn into a builder, and your mindset shifts, and those things change. And it's so funny. You're selfish, like a lot of ways, and then you're selfless, and then they start asking you 88 questions a day, and you start getting selfish again. Like, let me get my time back. But no, it's like really like the joy, the sacrifice of laying down your life for, someone else in another future. And I know, Alex, I mean, you've got, some different thoughts about thinking multi-generational, and you've had different people that have influenced you. And I wanted to like kick this question over to you because you mentioned in the chat about thinking long out into the future with 529 savings plans and, thinking multi-generational, with your son. Maybe if you had some comments or thoughts on that, I'd love to hear.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, first of all, I can't mirror Carla and Walker's sentiments anymore. Like the gravity of becoming a parent, just, I was a Bitcoiner before I became a parent, but once I delivered my child, it was just a whole new gravity of it. And one thing that really took me by surprise that I was really shocked about was really watching my mother interact with my son, my father interact with my son. And, my parents don't have the financial liberty to retire early. And it became a goal of mine to, stack harder, not only to set them up for financial success personally and allow them to pursue what they want to pursue without the financial weight of, you know, inflation and all that. But, for myself, a goal for myself is to be able to retire early enough where I can be a full-time grandma, where, when my children have children, I want to be there to help raise them. And it just saddens me a bit to see my mother and my father not being there as much as they would like to. So I see Bitcoin as a way for, me to become more present in my family. And I just wish the same for all families. So kind of to that note, I would like to ask maybe Morgan and Pierre a little bit about advice for saving for retirement on a Bitcoin standard, and also kind of their perspectives on 529 plans. That's something that I looked into a lot with my first son. And I just kind of negated away from that and just kind of stacked more on my own. So yeah, I'd love to get Morgan and Pierre's thoughts on those.
I'll start with the 529.
Yeah.
Okay. So the 529 is really only a good deal if you live in a very high tax state. So California and New York come to mind as the major states that you would want to use a 529 plan. And it also is really only relevant if you're a super high income earner where you're paying the highest tax bracket in the state. So you don't get any kind of federal tax deduction for putting into the 529. You only get a state tax deduction. And so even if you're not necessarily if you're not in the higher income earning brackets, even in your state, then it's still maybe not necessarily the best place to put it because it's locked up. It has a lot of stipulations on what you can use the money for. It can only be used for school, tuition, books, fees, things related to a college program. There are some states now that have adopted, since Trump passed a law back in 2017, where the state you can use it for private school. Not all states though have adopted that, and especially in the high tax bracket states like California and New York, they wanted to kind of give a finger to Trump and not adopt that. And so the place where you would most get the benefit for it is the place where you can least use it for schooling that's underneath college. That said, though, right, the money can grow for a really long time, and you do take it out tax free should you use it for schooling. And if you don't use it for schooling, you pay a penalty on it. There are not options right now where you can buy Bitcoin in a 529. Now that there are ETFs, maybe that's something that's on the horizon, but I don't imagine that's going to be quickly adopted. So yeah, I guess what I would say is if you are a high income earner in a high tax state, in a high state tax state, then maybe it makes sense, but otherwise probably doesn't make sense for most people. And then as far as saving for retirement, I mean, there's so many. I mean, it's just the wide array of options that are available to people. I mean, you would just save Bitcoin. You can take advantage of a company 401k plan, and hopefully you're getting a match. There's a whole list of things that I like to do with clients where we're talking about savings. The first thing you need is an emergency fund. The second thing you should do is, pay off any high interest debt. Basically from there, the third thing that you should do is pick up any free money that you can from an employer. So if an employer says, if you put 4% in a retirement plan, I will match it. You're getting basically 100% return right there just from doing that. And then from there, anything in excess that you're able to save, right, that's going to be based on somebody's, time horizon, risk tolerance, a whole slew of things that go into both taking risks from ability and willingness perspective, and also just what you're planning to use the money for. If you're planning on using it for retirement, then it's a really long-term savings goal for some people. But even in retirement, right, you still have a long period of time that you have to make that money last. So retirement for me, I think of as sort of just a long time horizon in general. And Bitcoin is perfect for something like that. But obviously consult a financial planner before you start taking my percentages to heart.
Yeah, what I would add, to continue on the line of the multi-generational aspect of it, which is that every Satoshi counts. So, today 1 million Satoshis is like $700. And so it might seem like, okay, well, that's, not a life-changing amount of money today. But it could be one of your great grandchildren's inheritance, right? That might be their whole allotment, and it might be a tremendous amount of value. And so to take that seriously and to be conscious of that. And the other part I wanted to add was in terms of raising fiat disrespecters. A really fun activity is to have them photocopy dollar bills. And my son, I mean, he had this tremendous euphoria of photocopying these dollars. And then I saw it gradually wear off as, he was on his 10th page of cutting out bills. Then he realized, oh, wait, this doesn't have any value, does it? And so, it opens up a conversation about counterfeiting and money printing. So I think there's a lot of fun activities you can do with kids that aren't like just reading Mises and Rothbard paragraphs at them, but really just doing interactive arts and crafts.
The last thing I would add too is that there's a lot of noise on the internet about how much you can spend in retirement, and people are using very outlandishly high rates of withdrawal rates because of how Bitcoin has performed in the past. And I would like to overemphasize that if you do want to leave a multi-generational legacy, taking out 8 to 12% a year for as far as spending, it's not going to fly. You're going to obliterate your stack within the first 8 years. You're going to have less than 80% of your stack left. I mean, or less than 20% of your stack left. Excuse me, I used the opposite. And so I would overemphasize being conservative, especially if you're thinking about for the long term and thinking about the future generations of what this money could mean for people.
Great tips. And I am keeping and writing down raising fiat disrespecters. I mean, I'm pretty sure everybody caught that line. Amazing. And great tips as always from both of you. I wanted to get either just see if anyone had any questions from the chat or any tips that they wanted to share. And I wanted to share also just for my own kiddo and what we do as a teenager who does want an allowance. We like to just give a small allowance and then match whatever my kiddo chooses to put into his long-term savings in Bitcoin. And so that's one of the just simple things that we're doing to foster that long-term time preference thinking, and also understand the value and the impact that even just saving small amounts in Bitcoin can have. Like Pierre was just saying, we don't know what the future holds, but we have an expectation of where Bitcoin is going, and we know there's a limited supply. So even those tiny little bits that you're helping your kiddos stack, getting out of all or nothing thinking, and really just getting into that mindset of what can you do and what can you encourage them to save, I think goes a long way. So matching those savings is what we're doing. And I'm not sure if any other parents or new parents have ideas on how they are encouraging their kids to adopt Bitcoin or save a little more before we wrap up, but would love to hear.
Yeah, I mean, I would love to hear from other panelists because it's not about us. One thing I wanted to hit I've got this little mixer here. I was going to hit the amen button when Alex said that your grandparents change, like your parents change when they meet your kids. It's so true. That we'll be at my mom's place and like somebody will spill something on the floor and she'll like laugh about it. I'm like, yo, like where was this energy like when we were young? Like everything is all good, everything's scot-free. When I'd be looking at her like they change, boy. I tell you, the grandparents change when those kids come out. Anyways, I just want to affirm that comment because it's 100% true.
Well, I wanted to say I don't envy parents that have adult children now, because it must be, I can imagine it's a lot harder to explain Bitcoin to them, introduce Bitcoin to them. My son he's gonna know Bitcoin his entire life, so I feel like it'll just be a natural progression for him to just get it and understand it versus trying to teach a teenager about it. So yeah, I commend Bitcoin parents out there that do have adult children who are, trying to introduce it to them for sure.
What a great point. Yes, I know my kiddo and everybody here, obviously our kids are growing up with it. It'll become just completely normal to them. And that's part of how the change will continue to occur. Lisa, did you have something that you wanted to share as well?
Well, yeah, there's a couple of things. So first of all, fiat disrespecters, Pierre, wrote down everything you said. Amazing tips today. Thank you. I was going to say two things. Make your kids get jobs, right? By the time they're 13 or 14, they can be working for somebody. Make them get jobs. They have plenty of time, especially in the summer, to play with their friends and also go earn money. And there is no better way for them to appreciate dollars than when they've earned them. And then I was going to say something else, but I forgot. I loved the photocopying dollars things too. That was amazing. I don't know. I forgot. This is amazing though. Thank you guys so much.
Yes.
I add one more thing as
yeah.
as a financial planner who deals with kids of all ages. You can learn at any age. I think that we often think that we have to cram it all in when they're young because that's when their brains are sort of like the freshest and you can stick the most things in there. But you can learn at any age. You can learn whether you're 1 year old, you can learn when you're 99 years old. And I think the more that we acknowledge that and embrace that, the better that really society will be in general, because we never want to be in a situation where people just think that they're too old to learn anything. That's just simply not the case and just not what I've seen in my practice overall. And so I think that that's encouraging and that people should take heart to that.
Well, and I'm proof of that as a giant kid who still has a lot to learn. So, Lisa, did you remember?
I remember. Okay. So Ella is working. She's working right now, day 4 or something of her summer internship. Shout out to Galaxy. Thank you for hiring her.
Yay.
She's writing a research paper for them on adoption. And so we were kind of talking through this last night, and she has this very like kind of esoteric philosophical view. And she was asking me, do you think this is like too off the wall? And of course I said, absolutely not. Like, no. But one of the things that she brought up, which is really interesting, is like, nobody their age has had a physical anything, right? They don't have CDs. They didn't have cassette tapes. They don't have photo albums. They don't have anything that's physical. And so, having money that is physical is also very foreign. She never has any cash, like ever, which is whatever. But so I think adoption wise, like, I don't know what the age is, maybe south of 30. Like they have always lived with digital everything. Why not digital money?
Yeah, that makes such good sense. What were you going to say, Dante?
Oh, no, I mean, yeah, nothing. Everyone, it's so funny. Everyone takes millennials to be these digitally like fully native people. It's like, bro, I remember when Netflix came out with the DVDs. Like, I remember slipping them in the slots and sending them back every 3 days. And it was magic when they came back. I remember doing every school report at the library. I remember not getting a cell phone until I was 17, all that stuff. Like all the scars. So yeah, we're definitely fortunate, I think, in that way to kind of bridge multiple gaps. I think one thing I saw one of your games, Scott, at the Thank God for Bitcoin conference, Scott and Tully. And what is your favorite game? Like, what is the game that you all have that is like locked in your kids in terms of math or Bitcoin or those sorts of things that's really fun? Because I know you all have a lot of great board games and things to do with your kids.
Oh, I don't think we have one game. I'll tell you, we made a mistake.
Come, everyone, I can't have a favorite kid. I'm just playing. I'm just joking.
No, we're fine. We're fine. We play a game. I'm actually Skull King. We play. It's just a card game with the kids. They like to play it. And with my dad, we play cribbage. So I play with my grandfather, and now my dad will play with our kids. And so it's not shiny, exciting game that most people would want to play, but it's a family tradition, and you have a lot of fellowship around it. So now each generation has played with the next generation, and that'll continue. So our girls don't really like cribbage as much, but they'll tolerate it because it's a family game.
Well, I also want to add that when they were growing up, we really wanted to make sure that they understood money. And this is pre-Bitcoin time for us. So we taught them very emphatically about the fiat system because that was all that we knew. And we did play Cash Flow for Kids by Robert Kiyosaki monthly. We were we were very intentional, and we would have a bowl of jelly beans, and every time they got out of the rat race, they had, their treat from the jelly bean bowl. And we played Monopoly, and there was a TED talk of someone who actually went to his bank and took out 10,000 US dollars in dollar bills and used real dollars to play Monopoly, and watched how it changed his kids' decision making in the game. And that's even, just to add to what Rochard and you guys were talking about, printing, like photocopying dollars. When you're actually playing with money, with cash, it changes how we make decisions. And so just little things like that you can throw in the interaction and with your kids, and always communicating. I think one of the things that we're really proud of that we did well with our kids was we communicated constantly, and we allow them to ask questions. We explain things, and if they asked us something, it was never yes or no. It was, let's think about it, let's think it through. And then now that they're adults, they still discuss things with us. Like an example with our son, he's getting married, and last year when he was talking about proposing to his wife, his fiance, he came to me and said, "Mom, do you think we should go rent an apartment after we get married? Or should we stay here?" And we do have a little cabin in the woods. It's 500 square feet, very small, very dilapidated, needed work. So it was either they were going to spend a year fixing it up and live there rent free, or they were going to go rent somewhere where it would have been easier. And we had a whole discussion. We wrote out the math, kind of like what Lisa was saying with Ella.
To answer Dante, your question though, I do have a caution for everyone, and that is, Tali and I are very passionate about the education, and I think everybody on this panel is very passionate. So doing something like Cash Flow for Kids or Monopoly or Huddle Up or whatever it is. However, the caution is you don't want your kids to resent it either. If every time you take out a family game, it's a lecture, they're going to associate that. So while we as parents want to sneak in, it's like putting some kind of good food in with the whatever snack. The best part I think about games is that fellowship time, because you can spend time with people of different physical abilities, different ages, and you can have some fun. There's a lot of things too in terms of problem solving, concentration, memory. There's other benefits to game schooling, if you will, besides just the subject matter of the game. And so I kind of break it up. If you're doing education, I'm going to recommend a whole different set of games. And if you're just trying to have fun, what we try to do with Free Market Kids is we try to make games that could fit into both camps. So for example, if you played Huddle Up and you just shut up and you don't say anything, they're still using Bitcoin principles and you can have fun. Take it to a Bitcoin meetup and people can bet real sats and get kind of crazy with it. But in terms of the gaming, that parental experience with your kids, that time with your kids where you're not watching a screen, that's where my heart is. I think those are the big takeaways from the game, regardless of what you're playing. But anyway, so it depends on your conversation, education or just fellowship.
Yeah, those are great tips. And that time with your kids is precious. As a mom of a teenager, I speak to all of you with the noobs and the babies on the way. You want to just cherish it all, because in a blink of an eye, you're just, at this point, I'm just grateful when I get to drive my kiddo somewhere, because pretty soon that is going to disappear too. Oh my goodness. Well, thank you all. I want to respect everybody's time. I know we went a little over the top of the hour. Thank you so much to my co-host, Dante Cook. Thank you for joining me. Camilla, Walker and Carla, Scott and Tali, Pierre and Morgan, Alex and Lisa. What an amazing conversation we've had. Thank you to everybody in the chat as well. Go follow us over at Pacific Bitcoin on Twitter at Pacific Bitcoin, and the conversation can continue. I know some of you had questions in the chat, questions about taxes, good questions for Morgan and the rest of the crew. Feel free to pop them below this live stream, because it is on our at Pacific Bitcoin handle on Twitter. And don't forget to join us at Pacific Bitcoin. Bring the family. Have an amazing week in Santa Monica, in LA. Beach, fun, sun, Bitcoiners, education, indoor and outdoor experiences, parties, sports, fresh air, be sure to use the code Bitcoin Fam, or just use the link on your screen, and that will automatically put that discount on there for you. You can save 21% and get that free jade, so you can lock your Bitcoin up in cold storage. I know all of my guests speakers would support you getting your Bitcoin off exchanges and into cold storage. Most importantly, thank you for being an amazing Bitcoiner and Bitcoin parent. We appreciate having you be a part of our family. We cannot wait to see you at Pacific Bitcoin. And if you're a dad, happy Father's Day this weekend. See you all soon.
Thank you for making me the person I am today. I know how hard you work, and I noticed all the things you do to help secure our family's future. Watching you, I have learned how to be resilient to life's inevitable changes. And because of you, I am willing to stand up for what is right, even if I am standing alone. You give me strength. You give me hope. And I know everything you do is setting me up for an amazing bright orange future. Happy Father's Day.